I dabble in photography. And in photography, perspective, how you see something, can make the difference between just snapping a picture and in creating a photograph that's really a story without words. It can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. The famous nature photographer Ansel Adams once said, "The key to a winning photograph is knowing where to stand." And sometimes a single event can have such a dramatic effect on perspective as to be life-changing. My son Ammon, he's all boy. He loved sports, tolerated school, and got into more than his fair share of mischief. Ammon was very happy, but he was never happier than when he was wrestling. It was January 12, 2007, and Ammon was wrestling in a high school match, and I got this call from my wife. "Jeff, it's Ammon. He's hurt. It's very bad. He's not moving. They're putting him into an ambulance. Meet us at the hospital. Come quickly." Believe me, no parent ever wants to receive a call like that. And it was a very long drive to the hospital. And all the way there, all I could think of was, please let it be a broken arm or a broken leg or a concussion. But the doctor told us that Ammon broke his neck. And he added that only 2 of every 100 people with this injury ever walk again. Talk about a change in perspective. My mind began to race with the implications. This is my son Ammon. This can't be. He's a good young man. How would he provide for himself? Would he be able to marry, have children? What would his quality of life be like? The things that used to be, through my little lens on life, crystal clear, now are all out of focus and all very blurry to me. I felt like a failure as a father, completely powerless to help my son. I remember the night of the accident, confidently, though naively, looking at the doctor and saying, "Doctor, Ammon is going to walk out of this hospital. You wait and see. He'll be one of the 2%. I just know it." But after 3 months in the hospital and 2 surgeries later, Ammon wasn't walking. He wasn't standing. He wasn't using his arms or his hands. It was becoming very clear to me that he wasn't going to be one of the 2%. Ammon was quadriplegic. And I found it very hard to carry on each day under the crushing weight of that reality. I was losing hope. But ironically, it was Ammon himself who provided the strength and the courage to continue to move on and strive. He had a tremendous perspective and attitude through this whole thing. So much so that on the day that he was leaving the hospital, the psychiatrist asked him, "Ammon, how is it you've remained positive and not held on to anger and bitterness through this whole thing?" My 16-year-old quadriplegic son said, "It's my faith in God. I know God didn't make this happen, but He knows it's happened and He's planned for it. There must be something I need to learn from it." Wow, what perspective. Paul Harvey once said, "If you want to make God laugh, tell Him the plans you have for your life." The plans I had for Ammon's life seemed to just evaporate right before my eyes. But Ammon's attitude and perspective touched and inspired so many lives, probably none so deeply than my own. I know that on my worst days, I've got it better than Ammon usually does on his best days, and I try to keep that in mind. But you know, Ammon's humor, and his sense of humor, really didn't get injured in the accident at all. Sometimes when he meets a person for the first time, he'll say, "Could you help move my leg? It needs adjusted in the chair." Now remember, these are paralyzed legs that Ammon can't even feel. So when the person touches his leg, Ammon screams and just terrifies his newfound friend. And I'm telling you, that's a conversation starter that just never gets old. Well, Ammon had been out of the hospital for about a year, and a friend called him and said, "You know, Ammon, your body will return when or if it does, but your mind's intact. Develop your intellect. Start memorizing things." Well, this really resonated with Ammon, and he began to memorize everything he could. He memorized with a vengeance. But over time, he began to look for ways to help other people and look outside of himself. He mentored at the hospital where he had been a patient. He tutored students at the high school where he had attended. He even served a mission for our church. And through it all, he and I learned a very important truth, a paradox, if you will. We learned that when you focus on the needs of others, sometimes the weight of your burdens lighten and your needs diminish. Again, like Paul Harvey says, and now the rest of the story. I thought you might like to hear the rest of Ammon's story. He's 22 years old now. No, he doesn't walk. He doesn't stand. He doesn't use his arms or hands. He's still very much paralyzed. But he is an A student, studying accounting at a university 1,000 miles from his family. And Ammon is doing great. And I feel that I live a picture-perfect life as well, due in large measure because of the example that Ammon has set. So what's the call to action? It's really that each of us get up out of our seats and take a stand. And when we've gained the courage to move on in the face of adversity, and when we can focus on the needs of others despite our own circumstances, and when we can gain the perspective that God is in control and has a plan for each of us, then we, paraphrasing Kipling, then we are men, my sons. And my son has taught me that in life we can do much more than just snap a picture. We can create a stunning, winning photograph. And like Ansel Adams said, the key to a winning photograph is knowing where to stand. I have learned much about where to stand and how to stand and what to stand for by someone who himself literally cannot stand at all.